Greetings. Greetings. How are you? How are you? I hope you are well. It's been a while. It's been a while. For those who are new here, welcome to the space. My name is Odessa. I am a mind, body, soul, womb wellness advocate, and just here to talk about all things holistic, well being, integration, expansion. Just, yeah, that's what the vibe is about. So, I've been away for a while. For those who were following my journey over the last couple of weeks, I traveled with my family to Ghana. And so it wasn't just myself and my spouse, it was myself, my spouse, and our three children. And it was a really good experience for so many different reasons. And I wanted to take a minute to just talk about it as a way of processing it. So in this particular episode, I'm talking about the experience of returning to Africa, having a chance to put your feet on the soil as a person from the diaspora. And so feel free, if you're here live, you can comment and let me know that you're here live. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to hashtag replay in the comments and let me know that you were here so I can comment with you as well. And so, yeah, so basically we we made the decision to travel to Ghana for 6 weeks. And one of the first things that, we noticed was the barrier to entry, which is, the cost to fly there is so high. It's very much, can be a put off, right? When you're looking to do something with your family or even on your own, depending on what your salary is, what your savings are, what you're capable of doing. Um, and so I found that, paying attention to this, it's cheaper to fly to Europe, it's cheaper to fly to the States, and sometimes Asian countries as well, where I'm from. I'm in North America and Canada, right? So when you're putting all of this together, it can be a turnoff. And then if you don't know anybody, and then there might be a language barrier and all of these different things. So I would definitely say wherever you decide to go, whichever place you choose to visit, I would look for a network. I would look for different other groups and organizations who are already there, who have set up, who have done what you're doing. Watch travel blogs, watch travel vlogs, read the blogs that content writers are creating, so that you can get a feel for the land, get a feel for where it is that you're going and what you want to do. So when we arrived in Ghana, one of the first things that we noticed, excuse me, was the infrastructure. The lack of infrastructure. So if you've ever been to the Caribbean or any other, we'll call it developing country or underdeveloped country, and you've paid attention to the infrastructure, you can see like some of the roads are not developed, or the houses may or may not have electricity or running water. Like if you've come from the islands or anywhere that's closer to the sun, you might have experienced this. And so this is a huge problem over there. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure and say, because I was speaking with another person, and she was saying, one thing that content creators tend to do is they tend to glorify and gloss over their experience, that's definitely not what I wanted to do when I was doing my documentation, but I wanted to make sure and mention, if you are a person who prefers to have a level of luxury, or you're a little bit bougie when you travel. You want to have all of your amenities. You really need to make sure that you plan for your trips. Then if you're going to travel to Africa or to any of the other underdeveloped developing countries. That's just kind of how I'm gonna how I'm gonna word that. Yeah, because like this is a really big problem where we were staying. We were staying in East Legon, and it's a generally, it's a well established area. I think I can say. But we didn't have an electricity generator, a power generator. So when the power, which goes out periodically, when the power went out, sometimes it really cut into like chunks of the day, chunks of the night, and so it's really about knowing what it is that you want and prefer. Where I live in Ontario, we need to pay for our water consumption. So you're doing the same thing in Ghana if you're if you're renting out a place or you're living at an Airbnb. This is kind of these were our arrangements, right? So we rented out a kind of like a bungalow house with a big yard and all that. So um, yeah. Uh, so making sure that you have connections, people who you can communicate with, people who you have been able to ask questions, been able to ask questions of, or, vlogs and blogs that you're able to peruse. So you can get a feel for what it is that family members, I had a specific family member who had gone ahead and visited before we had arrived, type of thing, had gone and then came a second time. So we were able to really move around easily, if I can say that. But then I also had a large amount, I can say, large amount of people who I also knew who had moved or repatriated to Ghana, to Africa. So and same kind of conversation. There were some who had left immediately and just established themselves on one flight. And then there are others who did the back and forth multiple times before deciding that this was their final destination, right? So there are a lot of different things to consider if you are someone who is considering traveling there, if you're considering moving there to Ghana or to any other country in Africa, basically, right? And so, one thing that stood out to me outside of your basic infrastructure was the people, the way that their spirit, their resolve, their joyous disposition, their buoyancy. There's something in that, like that. It was just undeniable, and it was really familiar. It was really familiar. It was like seeing your grandmother's faces, seeing your uncles, your aunties, in a way that was it was really therapeutic. We had gone to the National Museum, and we were listening to the history of Ghana, how it began, how it developed, how it came into the political structure that it is now. It spoke about, Kwame Nkrumah, and the foundational work that he did, and I just remember leaving there and realizing that I had relaxed a lot. I had loosened up. I wasn't feeling as much stress in my face or in my shoulders. And I was like, huh, okay, this is different, and I sat with it as we drove to Makola Market. And I realized it was listening to the history of Ghana, listening to the history of a country, you know, uh, in this exoticized land. Okay, so let's just be honest here, right? Like there's a level of exotification that some diasporans have when it comes to how they regard, returning to Africa, going to visit, going to the Caribbean, right? So there was, for me, I feel like there was a level of that, but not in a way that was over the top, but very much like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here, and can you believe that we're here? Whereas within our family, that's what it was. But, on the outside, it's like people who have traveled there often. It's, people who, are just passing through to go to another country or go to another continent, right? And so it's like the experience of diasporans, specifically in the West, who are returning to Africa, going to an African country for the first time, there's a certain level of excitement, of fear, of apprehension, of all kinds of different things, of expectation. And so I wanted to just kind of mention that and talk about it because I thought that was interesting, like observing people and they're happy that we're here, but okay, like, this is the life that we live. This is what we experience every day, all of the time. So that was interesting, right? But as I was in the process of recognizing this space that I was in, it was like, okay, but that familiarity, those things that made myself and other people stand out in terms of, the desire to connect to something deeper, something bigger, the desire to learn and understand the history and remember, put pieces together again, right? There's just that deeper, uh, deeper drive that was there. And so coming back and touching the soil, seeing the people, observing, with your senses and experiencing the land, there's like a click. I found there was a click that was made in terms of understanding what was driving my desire to, go down these routes of exploration and, life changes and blah, 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 not generalizing, but definitely, it shows up differently for many different people. And so for that, I really, I think about, I think about our aunties and uncles as a Canadian, Afro-Canadian, Caribbean woman. I think of, our aunties, our uncles, our sisters, our friends who are brothers who travel back to the Caribbean, who return home regularly, yearly, every couple of years, to tend to the land or visit family or just get away. And I think it would be a really interesting idea to consider going to a country in Africa, just go and visit. Like, you don't have to return to live. You don't have to make any, life changes. But I do think that for those who have been on the journey of searching and understanding, that would be an amazing way of putting some of the pieces together, because, the body will remember, it really will. And so while we were there, we had a tour guide who was so gracious with and professional with how he presented the choices, the work that we were doing with him, the traveling, the restaurants. He just really made it pleasant for us. And so if you are looking for, tour guide and guidance and whatever of the nature while you're out there in Ghana, in Accra specifically, I can always send you Ishmael's contact information. He was amazing. He's awesome. And he really made our trip that much more enjoyable, trustworthy, because one thing for sure is that as a foreigner, you stand out when you go to different countries. And that was one thing we definitely did. We did stand out. And so having people around you who can speak the language, can communicate, can navigate when it comes to certain movements or activities that you want to do, I found that to be really, really helpful, specifically because I was traveling with children as well, right? So that I found to be very, very helpful. And yeah, so we went around to different various sites. We went to visit the Cape Coast slave dungeons. I'll talk about that in a different episode. But another thing that I appreciated very, very much was the quality of the fresh vegetables and fruits. Oh my gosh. The mangoes at one moment, the mango was so huge. You're looking at it, it looked like a GMO mango. It was like the size of, a 2-year-old's head. It was so big and it was juicy and beautiful. It was like, what are we eating? The cucumbers had the biggest seeds in them. And here we buy organic cucumbers and I'm struggling to find seeds in the cucumbers. I don't even buy fruits and vegetables that much. I'm so turned off, although we eat them regularly. So I just try to get him to buy them. Yeah, because of just, how the food in North America has been making me feel. So eating fresh fruits and vegetables, mangoes, papaya, and pineapple every morning before eating your porridge or whatever it is that you're making oh my gosh. Oh, it was so good. And like just affordable, like what would normally cost you like a good $20-$30 in Canadian dollars, like it's 10 to 1 over there. So, I mean, it was a great experience. As somebody, I love food. I really do. I love to chew. I love to eat. I love to experience food, like when I'm really in the mood. And it was awesome. So, different texture in terms of like a tougher quality banana, plantain, tougher grains, or you got to boil the peas and stew them down a little bit more. Like those were some of the things that I found to be the difference, or the heavier textured foods, because it's a different, you're in a different area of the world. I was trying to go through the market and find specific foods, finding people who spoke in French, people who spoke English. It was quite the thing. I had fun. I had a really good time. With when I was walking with our friend Effia, but when I was with the children, it was a little bit. I found it to be a bit overwhelming to be in the market because everyone wants to talk with you. But the biggest gift I found was just being on the land. I said, and I'll talk about my experience of going to the slave dungeons in another episode, but there's just something about being in areas that are untouched, um, being in natural areas that can help raise your negative ions, areas where you can ground, areas where there's a lot of foliage, a lot of trees. I really appreciate walking in nature and meditating and connecting with the land around us. And when we went into like the Shy Hills resource, I'm not saying it right. It was a resource, nature's reserve type of thing. There was ostrich, baboons, zebras, and another animal that I'm pulling up a little bit of a brain fart. But being there was like, you know, there's just something in there's a difference in the air quality, a difference in, in the land and what the land is telling you. So, even going to the waterfalls and being at the waterfalls and listening to the water and allowing it to speak and respond. Same thing with going to the beach, as much as you can get to areas that have these negative ions so you can ground, so you can, increase your well-being, so that you can, connect more to your environment. It was amazing. It was a really good trip. It was hot. It was hot. It was hard to be cute. While it was hot, there I definitely appreciated having fans and AC. I appreciated streaming, running water. I appreciate power, electricity. It taught me a lot of different things about myself, about you know, being around different people, observing different cultures, and even going without expectations. That's one thing I did. I went on this trip without any expectations, and I really enjoyed myself. I really took it for what it was, and I enjoyed each moment and each day as it came, and allowed myself to feel in whichever direction I was brought. And so that was really, this was just the first little bit, the first intro into the trip that we went on with our family to Ghana. And just stay tuned. If you're new to the page, welcome again. And I'm going to continue to post live videos and reels and talk about healing, wholeness, and expansion, and natural medicine, and just ways to increase your levels of vitality, how to heal womb wellness, how to heal your womb issues, reproductive, hormonal issues, just different ways of increasing your levels of wellness. And I hope to have more conversations with you around these things. So comment below, let me know if you were on the replay or if you watched this live. I look forward to communicating and connecting and checking in with you again. Take care. Be well.